Hi everybody, it's Hilary here from We Love Smart Keto, here with a few more tips today. Great to see you. What we're going to be talking about today, the request of some of our We Love Smart Keto members, is we're going to be talking about building new habits. I don't know about you, but certainly that's something that in the past I've had occasionally some trouble with, how to build a new habit. So give us a like or a love or a wave in the comments if something that's you've had trouble with too, if maybe once or twice in the past you've had trouble with building a new habit. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today at members' requests. So what we're going to be talking about is it's not possible to get rid of bad habits, right? And that might sound a bit surprising to you, and perhaps a little bit controversial. And we shouldn't even actually try to get rid of bad habits. Does that sound a bit weird to you? You know, maybe you used to be a smoker and you've stopped smoking, and you say, well, actually, Hilary, I have got rid of a bad habit. You know, in the past, maybe you used to bite your nails or something, and you've managed to get rid of that bad habit. Well, actually, what I'm here to tell you is that you don't get rid of a bad habit, you replace a bad habit with a more productive and positive habit. And that's actually the way that we do it. So does that sound a bit curious to you? Let me know what you think about that in the comments. Let me know if you've ever actually swapped a bad habit for a more healthful habit, and what was it? You know, was it cutting out sugary drinks and changing to drinking green tea, for example? What is it that you've changed? So what's the reason that we don't try to get rid of bad habits? Well, and that we try to replace them instead? Well, the reason is that when a habit gives us something called a dopamine hit. So we get a reward, an intrinsic internal reward inside our brains, actually, when we do a habit. So, for example, if you eat a donut, your brain sees the donut and goes, woohoo, I'll have me some of that. Thank you very much. And you get a dopamine hit. It's a neurotransmitter. It's also known as the happy hormone, and it's that hit that you get in that moment for the reward. Now, the interesting thing is that our brain likes that dopamine hit, and if you've ever eaten sugary things, as time goes on, sometimes just one candy doesn't suffice, and you need to have a few, and that's because the dopamine effect can wear off, and your brain asks for a larger and larger dopamine hit each time. So the interesting thing about it is the dopamine hit before or after you have the candy or the habit that you have? Well, the interesting thing is that it's actually, let me know what you think in the comments about which one it is. Okay, so in fact, if you guessed before, you would be right. So actually what happens is just in that instant before you have the candy or you do the habit, or whatever it is, your brain goes woohoo, and the dopamine actually occurs in anticipation. So while it's a reward, it's really more an anticipatory reward. It's the expectation. And so if we can in that moment replace that habit with the healthful habit, we still get the dopamine hit, which is the really great thing. I'm not sure why my computer's dinging. I hope you can't hear that. If we can get that dopamine hit just before the reward comes, notice it and replace it with the healthy habit, then that's a really fantastic thing to do. And so one of the things that we've just learned is that we need to replace rather than remove habits. The other thing is, how long do you think it takes to build a new habit? It's an interesting question. We see a lot of sort of 7-day, 3-day challenges, 7-day challenges, 21-day challenges. In fact, research shows that on average, and average is a dangerous thing because there's some short-term changes and some habits that take a long time to change. But on average, a habit takes about 62 days, so 2 months, to really embed a new habit, which means that we need to make it, and that's quite a long time. I think 21 days. Yes, Alex, good guess. That's what most people would say. Research, the psychological research shows actually 62 days on average. Although if it's a positive change that you find easier, like an easier way to do a task that you habitually have done a different way, and it's easier, that I don't think you change back to the harder way of doing it. So it depends a little bit on what the habit is, but in general, a couple of months really to embed a habit. So one of the things that we need to do to help ourselves embed a habit is to make it easy for ourselves. So, if it's around eating things that you choose not to eat now on your keto lifestyle, but perhaps you've got other members in the household that still choose to eat carbohydrates, for example. And I know that a lot of us do have people like that in our families and in our houses and in our workplaces. Then the trick is to hide those things, or make them as difficult to get as possible. Hide them away from ourselves. So make the old habit that we want to get rid of or that we want to replace, make it as hard as possible for ourselves to do that. So, and there is evidence that shows, even just, making it a few steps to go and do the unhelpful, the unresourceful habit will really, really help. Similarly, if it's a new habit that you want to build, or the replacement habit is something like perhaps going for a walk, then make it easy for yourself. So, put your shoes right by where you're going to see them and where you're going to put them on. I remember years ago when I was trying to build a habit of exercising in the morning, getting up and exercising before breakfast, I used to have to lay out all my clothes the night before, because if I lay in bed and I went, oh my goodness, the socks, oh, they're still in the drawer, oh, I can't go for a walk, I would use any excuse not to go. Whereas if they were all laid out, they were just sitting there ready for me to put on, then I really had zero excuse to do it, because everything was just ready and easy. So that's another thing to think about, is how do you make it as easy as possible for yourself to do the new habit? Just put the things where you need them. Set yourself up so that it's not a big effort. Oh, where did I put my jacket? Where did I put? If you're going to take the dog for a walk, where's the dog's collar? All those things. Just make it really, really simple and ready. And that brings me to the very next point, which is about scheduling. We always say that what gets measured gets managed, but actually what gets scheduled gets done. So if there's a new habit that you want to build, think about, at the beginning of the week or the beginning of the day, think about when precisely do you want to do that? Okay, when are you going to do that habit? If it's we'll just use going for a walk, a daily walk as a simple example. When are you going to do that? If it's planning out your meals for the week, when are you going to do that plan and put it in your diary? We all have phones, calendars in our phones, or are you going to put it up on the fridge as a schedule of when you're going to do it? You're just going to set a reminder in your phone so that it pings up at the time that you want to do that habit. And so what gets scheduled gets done. So it's such a simple technique, but super duper powerful in terms of helping build new habits. So we've got a few things here. We've got using our dopamine response, and when we feel that urge, or that we want that reward, that expectation from our dopamine, switching out that habit, so replacing that habit. We've got scheduling your habit, and we've got making it as easy as possible for yourself to do. The other things I just want to talk about is tiny habits. There's a fantastic book called Tiny Habits. I don't know, and there's a website as well. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Tiny Habits. Let me know in the comments if you are. It's a really helpful technique if you're really struggling to build a new habit. It can be really tricky. I mean, the example that the Tiny Habits book gives, which is a great example, is about flossing. Some people find it really hard to, we brush our teeth as a matter of practice, but flossing is perhaps a less well disseminated throughout the community. So say you want to start flossing and you go, oh my goodness, I've got however many teeth, 30 odd teeth, and that's a really tricky thing for me to start to do. Well, then start with a tiny habit, and that tiny habit is, I'm just going to floss one tooth, just going to do one, and I can stop after one. So then if you do one, you go, oh, well, actually, I feel this is okay. Maybe I can do another one. Maybe you do all of them that night, or maybe you only do a couple that night. But over time, as you build that tiny habit can grow. So if we go back to our example of, thank you for your comment. I really appreciate it. Says Hillary, you're wonderful. That's very kind. I have a wonderful membership. And I'm hoping that I'm being really helpful for you guys with your keto lifestyle. So just coming back to that, in terms of going for a walk, just say to yourself, I'm just going to go for 5 minutes and see how I feel. So just put your shoes on, step out, see how you feel after 5 minutes. If it's not doing it for you, that's fine. Turn around and come home, because you've done what you committed to do. But if you feel like it's still positive for you, then just keep going for a little bit longer. Just say to yourself, I'm just going to go for another 5 minutes. And the thing is to only do it as far as you're comfortable. If you really push yourself and then you can come back in and not feel so good, then that's not going to build your habit. So little by little is the way to go. And I know we've talked about this with fasting already in terms of being able to build up our fasting muscle. So tiny habits and letting them extend is another suggestion. And the other one is habit stacking, which is a bit of an odd term, but what's habit stacking? Well, it's if you've got one good habit already, add another habit to it. So, maybe you want to learn a little bit more about the keto lifestyle and you already go for a walk every day and you think, well, actually it's safe for me. I'm going to put my headsets on and my headphones on, and I'm going to listen to something positive while I'm walking, something that's going to support me in my keto lifestyle, whether that's some motivating music or whether it's a keto podcast, or you can even listen to me if you really want to on one of these Facebook lives. But that's really stacking some good habits on top of each other. So it might be, for example, another habit stacker is eating a healthy keto dinner, and then adding on to that with drinking water rather than even an artificially sweetened drink. And so that's sort of putting your habits together at the same time. And there's just one more I wanted to add, because it's quite a lot of information in this Facebook Live. In this live podcast, live stream, is to chain habits. So if you know that you've got one healthy habit, you can then add another healthy habit on the back of that. So, you've got a healthy habit of going to the grocery store and buying really healthy food for your keto lifestyle, for your keto diet. But it might be that you're wanting to walk a little bit more. So your chaining might be, okay, well, I'm going to put a chain on the front of that. And so I'm going to chain my healthy habits. So I know that I'm going to drive to the grocery store, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to park a little bit further away so that I have to walk a bit further to the grocery store. And that's, walking is great for us. So, perhaps you get another few hundred yards, you park at the furthest end of the car park, the parking lot, for example, and you walk, and then you have a bit further to push your trolley back. And that's a sort of habit chaining, if you like. So tell me, out of all of these habits, what have you learned? What do you want to add to your habits? What habit is it that you want to add into your keto lifestyle? What are you going to give a go? Or what are you going to, work on and improve? Because if you're anything like me, you've perhaps started out with a great deal of enthusiasm, and then, that habit can diminish over time if we haven't really set up, the framework and the structure around it to make sure that it supports us. And just the last thing I wanted to talk about with building healthy habits is rewards. Now, when we do, our past habits, our unhealthy habits, we get a reward in our dopamine. We get a hit of dopamine within our system, and that's an intrinsic reward, an internal reward. And when we first start building new habits, sometimes we don't get that intrinsic reward straight away. For example, if you start exercising, I don't know about you, but if you haven't been exercising for a while and you go out and do an exercise session, you can be a bit sore a few days afterwards, and you're like, oh, and so you can put off going back to it. And so one of the ways to deal with that is initially to give yourself an extrinsic reward. So that's a reward outside of the body. Doesn't need to be money, and it doesn't need to be food. Okay, it can be anything else. So, for example, if I go back to that example when I tried to start exercising in the morning, which actually I built a fantastic habit for that. At the time, when I had my daughter, it sort of fell apart a little bit for a while, and back into it now. But the way I did that initially, and this is a little bit of a trick, and might be different for you in terms of what works, but as I said, I put all my clothes out the night before. I would get up, I would go out in the morning, I would exercise for an hour, either a walk or a jog, or just doing some weights or something like that. And then when I came back into the house, I would pay myself $2. Now, of course, that was my money that I was paying myself, and it wasn't really real money in terms of, it wasn't extra money, but I had a special jar by the front door, and as I came in, I put $2 in that jar, and it just gave me such a great sense of achievement to see the number of coins in that jar grow. And when it got to a certain amount, I promised myself that I would go out to the shops and buy myself an outfit, or top or something like that. And do you know what the funny thing was? When I actually got to the point where I had enough money in the jar to buy the outfit, I actually didn't need to do that anymore, because I really didn't need that extrinsic reward anymore, because I had been doing it for a number of months, and then I had then built that intrinsic reward system where in the morning, if I didn't get up and go out and exercise, I really felt the loss of that. And so tell me, is that something that you've ever tried for yourself, a reward system? And if so, what was it and how did it work? One of the things that we've done as a society, as a culture, I think, is we've often rewarded ourselves with food. So I wouldn't suggest that you use food as the reward, but think about, what are the other things that you might use as a reward? They could be things that cost money, or they could be things that are completely free. You could say, once I've done this habit, 5 times, I get to watch, an episode of my favorite show, or, I get to do something that you really enjoy. So just have a think about what you might do. So that's quite a bit in today's topic. Habits is a massive topic, and it's something that I know, 1st of January, people come up with lots of resolutions, and, we'll start with a bang and they can really fade away. But what we need to do is to do them in a smart way, and that's what we're all about here at We Love Smart Keto, is how to do things in a smart way. So I hope today I've given you a few tips and tricks and ideas about how you might help yourself with building a new habit. So tell me, put in the comments what's been your biggest insight from today. I'd love to hear. And of course, one of the things here in We Love Smart Keto we love to do is to support you. So if you're not a member of the Facebook group yet, please do join. We have lots of great conversations. Not all the lives go out to the page or to YouTube. We have sort of more conversations within the group, so please do come and join us. And if you're interested in a program that I'm considering developing, please, which will be based around coaching and helping you with your keto lifestyle, please just send me a DM. I'm still just sort of gathering interest in developing that at the moment. So please just send me a Facebook message in Facebook Messenger, or else send me an email at Hilary, HILARY, at welovesmartketo.com. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you for listening, and let me know in the comments what you thought of the talk about building habits. Thanks. Bye, guys.